In the last stream, we were working on kind of revamping the entirety of our base, getting rid of everything we previously had. All of the dark oak that we were using before as the base of our platform is now gone, and instead we have this gigantic stone platform which we can only just about fly inside of if we stay within the realm of all of our flight blocks. We do have quite a few flight blocks kind of nestled away and hidden around the base. Some of them are better hidden, some of them are kind of just haphazardly placed, but for the most part we do have pretty good base coverage here, and we have, of course, 4 slots ready for the first 4 tiers of Advanced Technium. Right at the end of the last episode, we did almost fully automate the Advanced Technium machine here. The only item in here now that is not fully automated is PALIS crystals, which of course we can automate using the atomic reconstructor over here. Now, there is a slight problem with the atomic reconstructor, and that is that, unfortunately, I think we're going to need 2 of them, because for whatever reason, when you zap the lead here, it does turn into lapis, but then we're unable to zap it again until we've picked it up. You'll see no matter how many times I press that button, it's not going to turn that lapis into the PALIS crystals that we need unless we pick them up, place them back down, and zap it again. And so what I'm going to do right away here is I'm going to go ahead and see if we don't have what it takes to get another one of these atomic reconstructors. For that, we are missing 4 silver ingots, and that actually takes us to another problem that we are running into. And that problem is that right now we do not have access, if we go to the advanced research chapter of the quest book, to these draw upgrades. The reason that's a problem is that you'll see here that we're backing up on a very large amount of some of these resources. So what's happening right now is all of our silver ingots are being produced downstairs, and then they're being sent around automatically to this controller, being melted into molten silver, and then being turned into silver plates. And by default, these drawers can hold 2,048 silver plates, which means it's going to be a long time before we have any silver that we can kind of passively use in other crafts. And so what I do want to do here is I do want to unlock these draw upgrades. This is going to help us on at least 3 fronts. The first one is this storage downgrade, which is actually going to allow us to reduce the amount of items that the storage drawers can hold from the default 2048, which is 32 stacks, all the way down to just 64, or 1 stack. And they're really not too difficult to make either. It's just sticks, flint, and the upgrade template. The upgrade template is the thing that we need the draw upgrades blueprint to get. For that, we need 16 storage drawers and 12 advanced research. Right now, we do have 8 advanced research in the system, and we currently also have 5 advanced Technium Ingots that we got at the end of the last stream. And of course, if we go and throw these PALIS crystals in manually, we're going to start making even more advanced Technium for us to use. Now, in a recent pack update, one thing that has changed is that before, the only way to get advanced research was to turn advanced nuggets into that advanced research. And so you would get 9 advanced research from 1 ingot. Now, though, we can actually put 1 advanced Technium ingot straight into the researcher, and doing it that way does give us 1 bonus research, so we get 10 per ingot as opposed to the 9 that we were getting before. And that should be enough there to actually make this happen. We just need to make 16 storage drawers, which does mean we need to have at least 16 drawer cores, which we may or may not have in the system. We do not. That is fine though, of course. We have the dark oak required. All we need to do is throw it in here with the draw blueprint, boom, and as soon as we have those cores, we should then be able to complete the draw upgrade research. The other upgrade that I've mentioned before is the void upgrade, this one right here. This is an upgrade that is a bit expensive on the obsidian front, but it's going to destroy excess items. This is super useful for byproducts, things like the glass shards here. You'll see this drawer is almost full. Right now, if this drawer does fill up, the blast furnace here will stop turning sand into salt, and that will stop the production of redstone entirely. What we want to do is craft one of the void upgrades, place that into the storage drawer. If you shift right click, you'll see there are 7 upgrade slots at the bottom of the interface here, and if we put a void upgrade in there, any glass shards that are made after this drawer gets to 2048 will just be automatically deleted, and the blast furnace will continue to produce the salt for the redstone. The same is also true downstairs. We have this blast furnace producing steel. Right now that's producing a byproduct of slag. We don't currently have anything to do with that slag, and so we could do with a void upgrade to delete the excess. There is also another option, by the way, Down here, there is an item recycling blueprint. This allows us to make the item recycler, which then allows us to turn, I think, basically any item in the game into item recycling coupons, and then from there we can use those item recycling coupons inside of the item recycler again to make tech books. And so we could, if we wanted to, take some of the excess items and try and use those in the production of more tech books, but for the time being, I do think that the void upgrades are going to be the quicker and neater solution to the problem. Back over here, though, now that we have the 16 oak drawers, we can combine those with our advanced research, and that is going to unlock for us the ability to make these drawer upgrades. So let's take you, and I think it's another recipe that really just requires wood. It does indeed just require wood. This is going to make us a drawer core, I think. It does, but now that's going to start making us the upgrade templates, which we can then use to make these storage downgrades. Now, one other thing that has been brought to my attention between streams is the fact that we do have this framing table here that we should be able to use to configure the appearance of our storage drawers. Originally, I looked for framed drawers and I saw that we didn't have any, but it looks like in the newest version of the mod, they've kind of tweaked the way that this works. And so I think here we should be able to make any kind of storage drawer, for example, this dark oak drawer here. And if I were to go ahead and throw down this framing table in here, we can place in the drawer, and then we should be able to configure the way that looks by putting in different blocks. For example, if I were to grab some of these white tiles that we've been using all around the base, I think we should be able to put these in like this and like this, and you'll see that depending on where we put the blocks, either here, here, or here, it configures either the outside edge of the drawer, the front face of the drawer, or the trim of the drawer. For example, if I put this here, that gives it a trim that looks like the white asteroid tiles, and if we swap these around, now the outside looks like the white asteroid tiles, and the front looks like the bricks. And so what we should be able to do is kind of tinker with this and get a custom looking storage drawer that we can then use around the base that's kind of going to fit the theme of our base a little bit nicer than the dark oak drawers that we currently have that we were really just using because it was the wood that we had available to us. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take our upgrade templates and we're going to go around basically all of our storage drawers here, and a lot of them are going to get these storage downgrades. If you have more than 64 items in a drawer already, you do have to take the drawer down to below 64, then right click to put the storage upgrade in, or storage downgrade in this case. You can put them in as well by shift right clicking and doing that to put them in manually, but right clicking on the front will do the exact same thing. From there, we can put these back in, and I guess we can kind of go ahead and melt down some of these silver plates again to fill up this buffer of molten silver. Once this buffer has filled up, we should then fill up this here with even more silver, and at that point, then we'll actually start to back up on silver downstairs, and we can use that silver to make our extra atomic reconstructor. And I'm going to go through and do this on a lot of our storage drawers, like the nickel rods here, the aluminum gears here, basically everything over here, all of the components essentially for the different tiers of Technium, I want to downgrade so that we only ever have a 64 item buffer, because any more than that, and I think we end up just kind of wasting items and backing up to such an extent that it's difficult to do anything with the raw version of whatever item it is that we're working with. And so I'm going to go through, I'm going to make some new storage drawers. I'm going to replace probably like all of the storage drawers that we have, and almost all the storage drawers that are holding Technium components are going to get a storage downgrade to make sure they can only hold 64 items. All right, so quite a bit of drawer replacing later. We now have a bunch of custom drawers. For those wondering, over here we are using black bricks as the trim, we're using white asteroid tiles as the outer face, and then we're using white marble, which we're actually fully out of, but you can make it in the stone cutter. We're using white marble for the front, for a nice kind of smooth texture on the front there, which makes it very easy to see what items are in our drawers. I have gone ahead and replaced all the drawers around the base, or at least I think I've replaced all the drawers around the base with the new custom drawers, and all of the drawers that are holding items that are going to be used for Technium research are now downgraded, or at least most of them are downgraded. So you'll see here we've only got 64 mini coal, we're only going to get 64 copper rods, and the same is true with the black bricks. Things like the flint, we already had 2048, and we already have a ton of gravel as well, so I'm not too worried about that going forward. The same is true with glass. I've kind of left that as well because we're already making so much of it, and a couple of other resources like the treated wood as well is not really a problem. We can kind of leave that going, and we don't have like a previous tier resource that is used to make the treated wood that we're going to run out of, because we just have this cloche dedicated to making the wood for it, and so that should also be fine. Back over here, one thing I didn't do last episode actually is I didn't set up the exporting of clay into this setup to make the snow. Now, between episodes, I was having a think about this setup, and I'm not really super happy with it, simply due to the fact that the whole point of the base redesign was to allow us to expand in the future in such a way that we can easily increase the amount of resources being produced, and we can't really do that with this setup. It's not going to be easy for me to add another freezer to this setup and increase the number of snow blocks being made, and so what I think I'm going to do to rectify that is kind of take the clay away from here and move the clay automation down to the lower platform. I'm going to automate the production of clay at the point at which clay is made. So I'm going to put down the crafter over here to turn clay into clay balls with another storage drawer to just hold those clay balls. And that way in the future, if we do also need clay balls for anything else, we can use them. Whereas if we just automate clay balls over here, we don't have access to them in the system, which is just not as useful. Now, one other thing we could look at doing is we could look at completing some more research here, specifically the research for the compacting drawers, because I have a feeling the compacting drawers are going to allow us to kind of automatically hold our clay in both block and ball form simultaneously. To do that, we need 16 more advanced research. We currently have 6, and as we saw earlier, we do get 10 from whacking 1 ingot in, so that should get us everything we need. We've managed to get 3 more ingots, actually, in the time it's taken us to replace all those drawers. And now the limiting factor is snow, because I didn't actually manage to automate the production of snow last time. Thankfully, that shouldn't be too difficult for us to get more of, and as soon as we have our 10 advanced research here, we can go ahead and combine that up with 6 compactors. Now, currently, we do have 2 compactors in the system, and thankfully, I don't think these are too difficult for us to make. We need 4 more of these sturdy machine frames, and then from there, it is just a lot of compressed cobblestone, which is now much easier to make because we have our cobblestone drawer downstairs just connected up to the system. Boom and boom. We are now just missing copper gears. One thing I didn't reset up in the last episode is the metal press. I do think that is well worth re-establishing. And so real quick, what I might do here is kind of right about here, I'm going to replace down the metal press here with the chest side to side and then connect it up to the biogenerator power so that we can make things like copper gears without having to go through another controller and solidifier setup, which I think is just going to make it faster for us to make things like rods, gears, and plates, especially for crafts like this in the future. As it turns out, in the new version of the pack here, you can actually craft some of these places, so no longer do you have to spend the tech books to buy them. If you want, you can craft them. And for recipes like this, the hammer isn't used, it just uses the iron plate to make the metal press placer, and then we can shift right click onto this guy. It looks like we might have to put it on the front. I have embedded this in the ground, and that's because I actually want the metal press that we're about to make to be in the ground as well. We are going to have to reroute that power pipe, but if we do that, it's going to place down the metal press. From there, we can grab that hammer that I did just use to craft this recipe. We can right-click again in the middle like so, and now we have a nicely embedded metal press. I'm also going to go and collect that energy cable that we just lost, and from there, it should kind of be as simple as running power to the top, and then our power cable does kind of go around the outside here. That's actually completely fine. If we just replace these 3 tiles, we can of course put down a facade in a second here. That's going to reconnect that up, and then we can also go kind of this way. It's not going to look the best, but it should work for the time being, and then we can use our facades here to just cover all of those like that. And now, going forward, we can go ahead and use this, along with, of course, a gear mold to make more copper gears fairly easily. We are currently not backing up on copper because we're not really making enough downstairs. We are actually currently running into a bit of a stone problem, I think. Let me do this and this. I'm going to turn all of those into copper gears for now. We do, of course, want to put a chest down on that side so we can actually collect the wares that are produced by this metal press, but it might also well be worth looking to potentially put down more stone miners. Right now we have 3, and we do have space for 2 more, but it's also possible that continuing on with our research trend here, we could look at upgrading to the next tier of miner. These advanced miners here are makeable if we get the advanced miner blueprint. For that, we need 24 research. We have 16. Of course, we do want to spend that 16 on our compacting drawer research down here, which does require the 6 compactors that we're working on. But if we put 3 more ingots in here, that is going to get us 30 more research. And from there, to make an advanced miner, all we have to do is just take our basic miners and place them in with the advanced miner blueprint. So it's kind of a free upgrade once we've made the blueprint. The blueprint itself does require that we spend 8 miners to make it, but that really shouldn't be that difficult, and it is going to upgrade all of our kind of passive resource production on the bottom level of the base. And so I do think that's definitely going to be worth us investing in. Real quick though, let me see if we can't get ourselves the remaining 3 compactors. I think we're going to be missing just the 1 copper gear, which puts us so close. We just need 1 more copper ingot and 1 more copper gear later. Boom, we have the compactor. Over here, we can take our new research. We can put the compactor in to get the compacting draw upgrade. And then while we wait for that, let's quickly see if we can't make 8 more tier 1 miners to allow us to make the miner upgrade. Taking a slight detour here, I do need to make 48 pickaxes if I'm going to make all of these miners. Of course, I could make the miners kind of one at a time, which would mean we don't need that much inventory space to hold 48 pickaxes. But something that people have been asking me about in the Twitch chat for a while is the iron chests mod. We do have quite a few chests over here, and we did add some new chests when we moved the base around. But what we've not done so far is upgrade those chests to the higher tier iron chests. And doing it is actually not difficult at all. It's just 8 iron and 1 plank to get a wood to iron chest upgrade. And once you have that, you can then just right click it onto a chest. And that essentially turns 1 single chest into the space of a double chest. So it can hold twice as much as it could before. And you can do this as well onto pre-existing double chests. So you can do this and this, and that now increases the storage space of all of those. And I'm fairly certain that that should still allow us to access all of the items. Let me quickly check. If I type in pipe connector, yeah, that pipe connector is still available, and so the inventory connector is still connecting through all of the different inventories to all of those items, and upgrading these chests from regular to iron is just going to give us that little bit more space to where if we wanted to, we could now, I believe, go ahead and drop all 48 stone pickaxes in and then use them to craft up the 8 miners. And there we go, 8 basic miners. Let's take the draw compacting blueprint. Let's also go ahead and throw in the 24 advanced research with the basic miner. That's going to get us the blueprint for the higher tier miner. Over here, we can now use our draw compacting blueprint along with a compactor to get a compacting core. And then that compacting core can be used to make a compacting draw. Okay, so we are going to need a fair few more compactors. Again, we still have the problem of getting more copper gears to make those compactors. And so let's pivot back to the advanced miner blueprint here. Now we should be able to go ahead and take the miners that we already have. Specifically for now, we can go ahead and take the miners that we currently have making stone. And if we upgrade those to tier 2, we could also look at, of course, making more of these as well to fully max out our stone production. To do that, all we have to do is put the advanced miner blueprint in here with the basic miner. Whilst we're waiting for that, we could even look at making 2 more basic miners here. That, of course, is as simple as getting more of these sturdy machine frames, more of these stone hammers. We need 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then making, ideally, 12 stone pickaxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And if we throw all of those into the system, that should be everything to make 2 more of these, which of course we can then throw into here. And very slowly but surely, those are going to upgrade to tier 2 miners. It looks like it does take 600 ticks, so about 30 seconds per miner here, but we can then take those and place them back down into the stone miner pillar, and that is going to double the amount of stone that we produce if we put 3 of them down. And of course, if we put all 5 of them down, that's going to even further increase the speed at which we're producing stone. One little trick that has just been pointed out to me here is that if you want to do a couple of crafts simultaneously with the same blueprint, you can actually start one craft in one of these research crafters and then move to another research crafter once it's started. So here, for example, you can put the miner blueprint in, you can put in a basic miner, then it's going to start crafting. As soon as it's crafting, you can move over to the next crafter, put in the blueprint and another miner, and then you can move back to the first crafter over here, put in the blueprint, put in the miner, and now all 3 of these are kind of simultaneously doing the same craft. So you're able to make 3 advanced miners at once because the blueprint doesn't have to stay in for the full duration of the craft. And now we do have a bunch of extra miners. I made some more just so that we could kind of leave this running in the background, and then later on we can throw them down as and when we need them for whatever resource it is that we're after. But here I do have 4 more advanced miners that we can throw down around here to give us kind of the maximum amount of stone that we're able to make with our current tower setup. So let's make sure that you are set to extract and that you are set to extract, and hopefully now that's enough stone for us to start backing up on stone, and hopefully enough for us to make our copper, at the very least, at full speed. And now that the copper is coming in again, we have more copper gears. We can use those copper gears to make 2 more of these compactors, and we can then, of course, use those compactors. just as soon as we make some more compressed cobblestone, because we've used almost all of our cobblestone making those miners, we can take these compactors and use them now inside of the research crafter with our draw compacting blueprint, this one right here, to finally look at making our first compacting draw. We also have these extra miners. We should maybe use some of those for cobblestone because we have managed to run out of cobblestone, but in good news, we are now backing up on regular stone. We actually have some available in the system, so it means we filled up all of our backlogs everywhere else, so every other machine should be running at full speed, including the copper. Over here, there are a couple of options in terms of the compacting draws that we want to make. As far as clay goes, I think the 2-tier compacting draw should be fine. So if we take this, I believe the idea here is that if we replace our current draw for clay with a compacting draw, we might be able to tweak this. So by default, it's gone down and it's placed clay and compressed clay. Let me try doing clay balls. Clay balls totally do work, and you'll see it now has the clay balls available as both 1 block of clay and 4 balls of clay. And so we would then be able to take those out in either block or ball form. And so essentially, what we should be able to do down here is just swap out this draw with the new compacting draw, which I guess ideally we do want to retexture to look like the rest of our base. You can retexture a draw that has items in it. Just be aware it will delete those items. We did test that earlier when we were configuring our draws, and we did lose the silver plates. Not a massive loss because we had too many of them anyway, but just a little bit of a fun fact there. If you do what I'm about to do here, like this, you lose the items. Again, there we lost like 4 clay. Not a massive deal, but if it's something you want to keep, maybe take the items out first. Either way, back down here, we can place down the draw. You do want to make sure that you put the balls in first. Otherwise, you do end up with this situation, which is not what we want. What we want to do is we want to kind of unlock this, take this out, lock this, craft some clay into clay balls, and then put the balls into the draw. Now, that's going to receive the clay blocks from the miners, and it's going to make them available to the system in both block and ball form, which is good because it means that now, without having to go through the crafter, what we should be able to do is reclaim our draw here, and back up on the surface, we just need to pump the clay directly into the freezer. So to do that, over here, I'm going to add a new filter for clay in ball form, like so. We'll set that to, let's say, light blue, like that, save. And then over here, we will go ahead and configure this to light blue, like so. And then just like almost everything else in our base now, if we connect that up, it should start to pump the clay from the drawers downstairs round into the freezer automatically. And then from there, we actually don't need this logistical transporter anymore because there's no longer any filtering that needs to be done out of the crafter. And on top of that, we should be able, I think, to use another compacting draw to turn snowballs directly into snow blocks. And so we might not even need the crafter at all. If we take the second compacting core here and use that to make another one of these compacting drawers, can I replace this with a compacting draw, again, after we texture it over here, like so, lock that like that, then grab the snow out of here. I don't think it's going to try and make double compressed snow, so I think we should just, never mind, it totally is going to try and make double compressed snow, okay? And so I guess we actually need to get some snowballs and then lock those into the drawer. This is not exporting, and that's because, Isaac, you are a fool. This is set to extract. We want that down, not set to extract, but we do want it down configured to light blue. Let's try the snowballs. The snowballs totally do work, and so actually, we should now be able to get rid of the crafter entirely, at least for this craft, and maybe just move the freezer forward. And as I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, I think in the long run, this is definitely going to work better because now, if we wanted to make more snowballs, for example, if we weren't making enough with just the one freezer, we could go ahead and add multiple freezers next to this freezer, allowing us to increase the speed at which the snow is made without having to move the whole setup somewhere else, which again is kind of the whole point of what we were working on last episode. So real quick, let's just set that back to light blue, connect that back up like so, and now we have a new snow automation system that is much more compact and also works, unlike the last episode, because we didn't actually connect it up. That is all good to go. Let's make sure power is reconnected up here. So now that that is done, right at the start of the episode, we were talking about PALIS crystals. In the time it's taken us to do all of that, we still do not have any more silver backing up. I'm assuming that's because we're still kind of backing up over here on silver plates. yeah, we got 64 there, we got silver there, and the silver is still being melted, slowly but surely. Eventually we'll fill up this internal buffer, and this here will completely fill up on silver. Until that time, let me temporarily see if I can't hijack like 2 more pieces of silver down here. We do also have some more silver ore pieces that we can, of course, go ahead and throw into the compactor there to kind of give that a bit of a kickstart. Once we get just 2 more silver, we should be able to make our second atomic reconstructor, and then we can definitely look at getting those PALIS crystals finally automated. And a little bit of silver siphoning later, we should now finally have enough silver to make our second atomic reconstructor. We do. So I think here that we're going to want to set up a system that is potentially a little bit inefficient, especially on the power front, but I think it's going to be better to have this automated than to not. And so my thought process here is that if we grab some of these drawers, I believe what we can do is we can place down a storage drawer like this. And then let's say that we want that to be the storage drawer that's going to hold lapis. We can throw down the lead, quickly use our button again, I guess, to zap that. I am going to change this back to continuous zapping as opposed to only zapping with a redstone signal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use these conveyor belts actually, because with these, what we can do is we can lock this drawer to lapis like that. Now, the lead is not going to be able to go in there, but it is going to sit in front of the atomic reconstructor. From there, if we give this a redstone signal, it's going to turn into lapis, and then the belts do actually put items directly into the storage drawer that they're pushing in. And so because it's locked to lapis, as soon as it converts, it goes into the drawer, which is good. What we can also do is we can go ahead and get one of these extracting conveyor belts. To make these, we need some strip curtain, which is just tough fabric and steel rods. And it looks like we actually have the tough fabric. It's the steel rods of all things that we don't have. It actually looks like any rod will work. If that's the case, we might be able to do that with the copper rods or the nickel rods that we have. It does appear that we are actually out of tough fabric. Over here, we're kind of making it very slowly but surely. Let me temporarily turn off the extraction on that so that we can potentially start to back up on some of that tough fabric, and hopefully it won't take us too long to get the 6 that we need. We are going to need to make 2 of these. Thankfully, you do get 2 lots of strip curtain at a time there. Other than that, we also need more iron mechanical components. Thankfully, we do have some iron plates lying around already, and so we can reuse our engineer's work table over here just as soon as we steal some more copper from here. Steel is a strong word to use when there is no copper available. It looks like we've done too much stealing as of late. It's possible that we might need to go even further with this and put down even more rock washers with even more copper focuses. Although actually, for whatever reason, that is set to extract, but it's not pulling those copper ore pieces out. The same's true there, actually. And that's because you've got a raw copper piece in. Okay, that could be potentially the cause of our problems. All right, now that that copper is fixed, we are actually starting to make copper again, and it's being sent to where it is needed, which is good. Over here, we can do this, and we can do this. In the time it took us to do that, did we get some more of these? We did. I actually want to stop it going into here, actually, not into here. This is fine. We can leave that setting to extract. I actually did just use 4 to make some leather. So the answer is yes, we did get enough in that time, but I also wasted some making even more leather. That is fine. We do, in fact, still have enough to make the strip curtain. We just need some kind of rod. We do have a lot of steel, and so although it is inefficient, I am going to go ahead and do something like this to make that strip curtain, and from there, we just need 1 more treated wooden plank, which I am assuming we'll have backed up over here. We totally do. Nice. So that should be everything that we need to make our first extracting miner, and we actually do need 2 of these, so it's probably well worth here just quickly grabbing 1 more iron mechanical component, because that should also give us the ability to do this and this to get another one of these extracting belts. Because now what we can do is we can get another drawer. We can export the lead that we're making downstairs up to this drawer right here. We will put a downgrade into that drawer so that we don't take all of the lead. We only take a maximum of 64 at any one time. And then from there, if we put down a conveyor belt extractor like this, that's going to extract the lead. We can then use our torch here to change the redstone mode on this from pulse to deactivation. What that does is that's going to just passively zap the lead every couple of seconds. Again, that's kind of the wasteful part of it, because it means that even if there's no lead there to zap, the atomic reconstructor is going to keep zapping over and over again. But I think that's fine. That's an acceptable amount of power waste, especially considering it doesn't really use that much power. What we then need to do is kind of the exact same thing again. We need to extract from the lapis drawer with another one of these extracting conveyor belts onto another conveyor belt, like this, with another atomic reconstructor, like that, also set to deactivation mode with yet another storage drawer. Do we have one more of these? We totally do. If we put that down here, this one needs to be locked to PALIS crystals, and we can essentially do the same thing going from lapis to PALIS. So if we take these and place them in like so, we can lock this drawer, and then from there we can put down another extractor like this, and as soon as we give this power, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to zap the lapis into PALIS, allowing the PALIS to go into the drawer here, and thus automating the production of PALIS crystals. I do want to make one or two small tweaks to this, just to make it a little less likely to cause a lot of lag, because there is a chance here that essentially we back up on PALIS crystals, we back up on lapis, and then we end up just kind of pumping an endless amount of lead onto this belt, and eventually it just gets deleted because there's no need for it, right? Or there's nowhere for it to go, which would not be ideal. The way that we can potentially fix that is by using a redstone upgrade. This uses the upgrade template that we unlocked earlier in the episode. Now, I did use all of my earlier upgrades by the looks of it to craft storage downgrades. We have 8 of those, but if we go ahead and grab the draw upgrades blueprint, we can, of course, very quickly get some more of these cooking, and of course, we can use the same method that we saw earlier to kind of double up the production of this, because essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 redstone comparators here. These redstone comparators do require PALIS crystals, and so real quick, let me kind of break this temporarily just to throw down some lapis, which we can then auto-zap into PALIS. Perfect. And so back over here, let's take these out, and let's see if we can't make 2 compactors. For that, we're going to need a few more redstone torches. That is completely fine. Boom, and boom. And the idea here is that with the redstone upgrade, the redstone upgrade allows the drawer to emit a signal based on its total amount of storage. So what we're going to do is, over here, I'm probably going to move this a little bit, because right now it's a bit close to the power generation, and I do need a bit more space. We are, of course, going to have to run power to this, but what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to grab that, because I do not want to lose that. Let's move this at least 1 block further over. So let's put the constructor down, actually maybe right about here, like that. Because then what we're going to do, we're going to have the drawer for lapis right about there. I'm pretty sure that's the right drawer. It wasn't the right drawer, but that's fine. We can go ahead and take the lapis out of here. So what we're going to do, we're going to put downgrades into all these drawers. So you need a downgrade, and you also need a downgrade. This one is going to receive lead. Let me make sure that's locked to lead, like that. And then we're going to put down our extractor right about here. What I then want to do is I want to use a comparator over here on this drawer. By default, that doesn't do anything unless you put the redstone upgrade in. As soon as you put the redstone upgrade in, now this is able to emit a redstone signal based on the level of items in this drawer. And so from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some redstone like this, and we're going to run this just kind of around to here. And essentially what we do now is if we put the lapis in, that's going to trigger this, stopping this from extracting any more lead. So if I do put some lead in there, that lead is not going to get extracted because we're now backing up on lapis, which I think is exactly what we want. It is, again, going to continue to waste the zaps of the atomic reconstructor, but it does mean that going forward, we're not going to delete all of our lead, just letting it disappear into nothingness. We can then do the exact same thing over on this side as well. If we move this atomic reconstructor over to here, we can set this to extract. We can put down another belt like this. We can put down our 3rd drawer for PALIS crystals. Again, make sure it has both the redstone upgrade and the storage downgrade. And then from there, we're going to throw down another redstone comparator with some more redstone dust going into the extractor like this. Now, of course, to make this work, we do need to run power to both of these. And so real quick, let me just run a little bit of universal cable kind of under all of this to make sure that both of these are connected to our bio generator. Like that. Cool. We can then, of course, I believe, go ahead and facade that. And then I'm hoping that we can place down things like redstone and comparators on top of the facades. I've not tested this, but that totally works. Nice. And so over here, we can do something like this. We can place down our comparator like that and like that. That's going to, again, stop the lead being extracted if this is too full. And then the same is also true here as well. We can now put this down like this, set that to extract. And now, as soon as we have a slight backlog of PALIS crystals, it is going to stop the lapis from being extracted. The backlog doesn't need to be massive. It's not going to wait until it's completely full. You could, if you wanted to, make this, longer, like that, and that would increase the amount of PALIS that you would back up on. For now, I don't think that's really going to matter for us because, of course, we're going to hook this up with an inventory connector, and it's going to auto-send all of the PALIS into the advanced Technium, so we're going to have more than a 64 PALIS backlog before this stops anyway. But this should now work, and so really the only thing left for us to do here is to connect this drawer here up with lead. So we need to actually throw down another inventory connector and then extract from that so that this can be connected. What we can probably do if we wanted to save on inventory connectors is craft 2 of them, place those down under both the PALIS and the lapis. We don't strictly need it for the lapis, but I see no reason not to connect the lapis because it's going to allow us to use that lapis for crafting in the future. And then if we can get one more logistical sorter, I think we'll be able to extract from the pre-existing inventory connector that's on the lapis round and into this drawer. So if I do this and then run some cable from here round and up and into there, we can then go and then just add lead to here, deleting these, new item filter, and lead ingot. Save. So that's going to pull the lead ingots from where they're being created round into this drawer. This drawer can hold no more than 64, that's fine, and so long as we're not backing up on lapis, that's going to get sent over. And so now, to really finalize this, all we need to do is grab some inventory cable and make sure that these inventory connectors are connected up. And so for that, what we might want to do is kind of connect it to this side, because up until now we've really only been working with this side of the base. I don't think there's any inventory cable close over here, but if we get our pipe connector, what we should be able to do, maybe, is shift right click here, shift right click here, and that looks like it's going to connect just fine. We do want to bring it up by 1, like that. Bringing it up actually reroutes it this way, which I also think is perfectly fine. And from there, we can go ahead and place pipes. Fantastic. And then the final little bit of connection is really just kind of getting these two to connect right here. Thankfully, breaking these doesn't break the belts above them, and all we would have to do is boom and boom. And so now, this should all just work, and we should, hopefully, if we go check, see PALIS crystals being sent around to here. They are. More advanced Technium is being made because now everything is finally being automated here. Some things faster than others. Of course, the bronze is not coming in tremendously fast, especially before we fixed the copper just moments ago. Someone did point out, actually, when I was replacing the storage drawers, that we might not need a storage drawer for bronze blocks, because what we can probably do here, and that's why I didn't put one here, what we can do is we can move this power cable, and I believe we can just put the inventory connector directly onto the alloy kiln. That should give it access to whatever is already in there. So if we do something like that, that should give it access to those bronze blocks, and you'll see it's already taking them and putting them over into the advanced Technium crafter. The benefit of doing that is just that it lowers the buffer of bronze blocks that we have. So instead of having 64 backlogged in here and then another 64 backlogged in a storage drawer, it reduces that backlog to just the initial 64 blocks, which means that we can then back up on copper and tin and use that copper and tin elsewhere in the base, as opposed to having it needlessly kind of backlogged inside of the bronze. With that hooked back up, we can hopefully go ahead and use some facades here. Fantastic. And now, finally, I believe that we do have advanced Technium fully automated, and we can probably do a fair bit more of the advanced research here. One of the pieces of research that I have wanted to do since we unlocked the chapter is, of course, the research for this speed curio. To get that, we need 24 research and 16 sugar. Let me go ahead and see how much research we have. We've got 6. Also, the chat is requesting that we use the sound muffler mod here to reduce the sound of the atomic reconstructor. So if you type in a reconstructor here, you can actually mute the sound entirely, or you can use this as a scroll bar to configure the sound between 0% and 100%. I'll turn it down to like 10, so we can still just about hear it in the background, but not too much. Now, I can't help but notice that there's a lot of stuff here. Like a lot of stuff being exported here. So we have... Oh, that's because this drawer wasn't locked. Okay, and it's become an inventory cable. Okay. Hold on, hold on, right. Let me disconnect this, and this, temporarily. We didn't lock the drawer to lapis, and so we've got a big problem here. Let's lock this drawer to lapis. There we go. Then we've got so much cobblestone for some reason. Let me delete the cobblestone. We don't really need to use this. There is a trash can slot, by the way. You can use this to just kind of delete items you don't want. As soon as you close it, the items are deleted. Let's try that again. Let's do that, and let's do that. There we go. And then also, let's put the lead back in here. That should put it back in the drawer downstairs. This is way more lapis than I was hoping to make. I was hoping we'd have a much smaller amount of lapis backlogged. Hopefully, though, now that should work as intended. Okay, so it looks like we might want to pivot over here to using the inventory cable connector potentially for this setup, because I think what's happening here is somehow the inventory connector that we have down is kind of connected to the drawer, but then it's also maybe connected to these belts as if they're inventories or something like that, and it's behaving awkwardly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and remove this temporarily. Let me get my wrench out. I'm also going to remove this temporarily as well. We do still need the inventory connector, but we're going to place it elsewhere. Then if we put down an inventory cable connector like that, that should just give the system access to just the lapis, I believe. And we can do the same here as well. And I think that should give it access to just the PALIS, I believe, as well. And then over here, this is fine. Let me once again kind of get rid of the excess cobblestone and stuff that we've managed to pull out of the system. It's just pulling random stuff from everywhere. Let me put a lot of this kind of back for now. This now looks like it's working. That cobblestone isn't necessary. So with those connectors, this is fine. We've backed up on PALIS, which is good. And then we've also backed up a little bit on lapis. So this is no longer extracting. That's also good. We do still need to send lead here. That is fine. For that, we're just going to put down another one of those inventory connectors, but we're going to make sure it's not touching any of the inventories. So if I take one of these and I put this down, let's say right about here for now, and then we kind of connect that up like this, that should allow us to pick you up, replace down the logistical sorter, which is already configured to lead, and so now I think this should work. It's just you run into some weird issues if you have the inventory connector connected to too many inventories. Over here, we had a similar problem last stream where there's an inventory connector down here. This inventory connector is connected to this drawer, and then of course this drawer, but it's also connected directly to the coke oven. So I turned off the extraction of treated wooden planks, but the treated wooden planks are actually getting extracted from here. You'll see there's nothing pulling the treated wooden planks out, but as soon as they're made, they get extracted. And that's because the inventory connector is connecting up here through the coke oven into the solidifier, and then using that to pull the treated wood all the way around over to the basic Technium machine. And so you've just kind of got to be aware of all the inventories that are connected to one inventory connector. And over here, we ran into a very similar issue where it was pulling random stuff and sending it to, I think, the extracting conveyor belt there, kind of mistaking it as an inventory, which was not ideal. Either way, back over here, we did want to put like 3 more of these advanced Technium ingots in to get more advanced research, and then we do need some more sugar if we want to make that speed upgrade. For that, we need some sugarcane, and for that, I think we're going to want to use the strainers that we had at the beginning of the series, and we need to strain some sand with water, and then it says T2+, so I guess a tier 2 mesh or above, and it looks like the mesh we do have is wooden, so that's definitely not a tier 2 mesh. It looks like tin is maybe our best shot here. We did have a lot of tin ingots a minute ago, although I guess we might have been turning all of our tin into bronze now? What is going on here? We currently don't have much tin. That is because over here, we just put down an inventory connector to connect the alloy kiln up, and in doing so, we've created an infinite loop where we're extracting the tin, the copper, and the cobblestone here, and we're pumping it into this inventory connector, which is putting it back in the system. We need to stop the cycle, just kind of break that, I guess, for now. I'm going to pick all these pipes up because picking the pipes up is going to allow us to pick up a lot of the items there. We need to replace that down, but just with this disconnected. So we want to disconnect this here, like that, so it doesn't connect, and then we can rerun that pipe kind of back down and around to here. And I think we also want to make sure that we have that colored correctly to blue. So let me do something like this. You can, by the way, use these as kind of gates, because you don't have to just color the final pipe blue. if this pipe is blue, it will only let blue items through, which kind of has the same effect. So you can use it to get items as they travel from one destination to another. And so that configuration right there should still only allow the tin and copper up to the top. It shouldn't allow any cobblestone up to the top. We can then go ahead and put the tin back into the system. That should allow us, ideally, to make a tin mesh. It does. And if we put that tin mesh down with our strainer, let's say right about here, with this in like so, we can then, once again, just like we did at the start of the series, grab a leaf, grab a bucket of water, and if we waterlog that leaf, which I think we can do like this and like this, we can then go and start straining some sand to hopefully acquire some sugarcane. And it also might well be worth putting some speed upgrades in here as well, just to make it that little bit faster. It does help if you put these in the right slots. The sand goes at the bottom, the mesh goes at the top. So it turns out we didn't really need a speed upgrade. Also, this uses the speed cap blocks in the first slot at least, so we can put obsidian in just like we did in the last episode to make that a little bit faster. And by a little bit, I mean twice as fast. It goes from 220 ticks per sift just down to 100. And then from there, we can use a mesh upgrade or an output upgrade. So there are multiple different tiers of upgrade here that we can use. From there, we can take that sugarcane and, of course, turn it into sugar. We could also look at growing it as well if we needed more going forward. For us, though, we are only going to need 16 to get the speed curio, and then we probably don't really need too much after the fact there. So I'll leave that running in the background, and that shouldn't take us too long to get up to the 16 that we're going to need. Other than that, there is also research for the Advanced Research Crafter here, which could also be a useful unlock because it is going to allow us to upgrade our basic Research Crafter. Not only is that necessary for some future bits of research, but it's also, I think, just going to make it so that we can complete bits of research faster, which I think is going to be very useful because right now, some crafts definitely do take quite a while. Over here, if we want to do that, we just need to put these two in with 16 of these. So, boom. And boom. That's going to get us the research for that. We should probably throw a few more of these in here, at least one, to get us back up to the 24 that we're going to need for the speed block. Speaking of which, how are we doing over here? We've got one more. Okay, that's almost halfway towards the 16 that we're going to need. And in terms of making the actual Advanced Research Crafter, it's just a case of taking the blueprint and then using it in a basic Research Crafter with a basic Research Crafter. So we are going to have to make yet another basic Research Crafter here, which should be fine if we have copper backing up, which we don't, unfortunately. We do have one block of copper there. That one block of copper, I believe, is the copper in the alloy kiln. It works a little awkwardly here because it shows it in the system, but I can't take it out, and I believe that's because it's in the input slot of the kiln, which is probably for the best. We should, however, have some copper over here. We do, and so if we go and throw this onto our metal press belt, like so, we can get a copper gear, and we can, of course, use that copper gear for yet another basic research crafter, which we can then upgrade in our basic research crafter to an advanced research crafter. And once that's done, we can go ahead and throw that down, and I guess we can then pick this one up and do the exact same thing. We can put it back in with this guy, and that should craft it faster. So in the basic research crafter, that was going to take 800 ticks. In the advanced research crafter, it's down to 600 ticks. So it's a little bit faster, 25%, but it is faster. And it's going to make all of our research crafter crafts faster going forward. Whilst I was waiting for that, I did get more sugarcane, and I did temporarily throw some sugarcane into this cloche as well, because the cloche here is guaranteed to make sugarcane, and with the speed upgrades, it is a lot faster than the strainer. Once we have 16, we can take our advanced research, and we should finally be able to make the speed curio, which is going to give us the speed 2 effect and allow us to move around this base much, much faster, including both when we're walking around and when we're flying around as well, which is just going to make us, I think, that little bit more efficient. And once we have the speed curio, we can now just combine that again with another one of these kind of blank curios over in our new faster crafter, like so. I will also throw you down like that for now as well, and hopefully, somewhat slowly, that's going to get us the speed to charm. I say somewhat slowly because it's kind of ironic for the speed curio to take such a long time to craft. I do also think that, yes, there are indeed even faster speed curios as we progress through the pack, and so we are going to go even faster, which is going to be even better, especially as our base gets even bigger and even more sprawling. Boom, and boom. So now, it's not a huge upgrade, speed 2, instead of our default speed, but it is faster. I have gone to the accessibility settings here and turned off the FOV effect. With the FOV effect on, it's kind of a more obvious change in speed, I think, or at least it feels like a bigger change in speed because the FOV gets wider, but I'm not really a fan because it means that by the end of the pack, if we leave that as it is by default, we're going to end up with a really big FOV that's going to look a little crazy, but trust me, we are now moving faster around the base, and it should be easier to get stuff done. So this is actually looking really good. We are backing up on a lot of stuff. It looks like crushed deep slate, of all things, is not being sent around. Is that because we don't have enough being made, or is there a different problem? It looks like we might not have enough being made, actually, because we are using it over here, of course, to make things like silver, lead, and nickel. So the crushed deep slate is being processed, and yeah, even here, it's not being made fast enough. One thing we could do is we could go back home real quick, and we could grab our preheaters out of the system. If we make just one more preheater here, we should actually be able to speed up both blast furnaces, because one thing that I did find out a little while ago is that you can, in fact, share these preheaters. So if we put one of them down like this, we can use the hammer to rotate it, although it doesn't actually matter which way it faces, because you'll see here, if I do this and rotate that to face this way, it's still available for this blast furnace. So if I were to, for example, run some power cable like this, somewhat awkwardly to both of those, we can then, of course, run that power cable down and ideally connect it up to our pre-existing power cable, which, if I'm not mistaken, should be fairly close by. Although, actually, it's all the way at the end, so you know what? We can actually do this on the other side. If I take this out, pick these up, we can actually switch this around, because we are going to ideally put another preheater down on this side as well. So let's run this kind of across this way. There's going to be another preheater right about here. That preheater only comes one block off. So what we're going to do is we're then going to run kind of down from there, and then it should just be a case of running over to here where we already have some universal cable. Up here, we're making a more universal cable to connect that up, and the Twitch chat has pointed out that it's actually more efficient here for us to make this wire mold with our copper, instead of first turning our copper into copper plates and then using those copper plates to make wires. I think it's actually just more efficient this way, because normally we get one copper wire per one copper plate, which is one copper ingot, whereas here you get two copper wire per copper ingot, so effectively double the number of copper wires, which allows us to make even more LV wire coils, and therefore even more of these basic universal cables. Nice. So down here, let's do one of these. Let's grab our pipe connector. We should be able to very quickly connect you to you, making sure that we bring that up like that. Fantastic. Place pipes. Good. And so now we'll see in here that both of these are orange and it's going faster. And over here, you'll see that on the right-hand side, this is on. So this preheater, despite not actually pointing at this blast furnace, does in fact still work with this blast furnace. So you can share the preheaters if you put them down in the right place, which we've done here. So you just want to leave a one block gap between the two multi-blocks, and that's going to speed both of these up. Obviously, ideally, we would go and get another blast furnace preheater here so we can get both of them going a bit faster, but the good news is that they can share. And there we go. Boom. This is now also online. I guess we actually do want this cable maybe down like that, and then we can kind of pick these back up. But that should now be making the crushed basalt that little bit faster. And of course, we can throw down even more facades here to cover that up nicely. But this should now be being made quicker. I don't think the crusher here is going to be our bottleneck. And so hopefully, back up here, the production of advanced technium is no longer limited by crushed deep slate. It does look like that might still be the limiting factor, but we've got way more of it coming in. We've got 10 of these now, and we've already done most of the research, or at least the imminent research I wanted to do here. And in fact, really, there's only two left, and those are the fluid recycling coupon and the item recycling coupon that we saw earlier. Before, I was talking about using the fluid recycling coupon to delete excess creosote, but now that's really not a problem. We're not backing up on creosote at all. In fact, it's kind of one of the limiting factors in terms of making basic technium, or at least it was. Now the basic technium is just full. I think right now, we're not actually sending basic technium over automatically, and so one thing we should probably do before we ramp up here is grab another storage drawer, texture that over here, like so, and then actually set the basic technium to extract. Let's go ahead and put down, I guess, just a drawer like this, make sure it's locked, make sure it's got a downgrade in it, and then make sure that we can extract from here into that drawer. Cool. So now that's going to make more basic Technium. We are going to have a 2-stack backlog. That is completely fine. We do, of course, need to make sure that this connects up to the system. One thing we could do here, actually, is we could just move the inventory connector over to the storage door. So if we put this inventory connector here, up here, we can then just extract from that with like one more of these advanced pipes, and we should be good to go. Something like this and like this. We do want to make sure, of course, that that doesn't connect in the middle there, like that. And then again, we can just set this to extract, and that should pull whatever items it needs to pull up and around into the basic Technium machine just as soon as we make sure this is connected. Cool. And that basic Technium there is now available, and you'll see it's all immediately getting ripped out and sent through into here. Cool. And this is also now backing up. It now looks like, again, it's bronze. There's a problem. Of course, we don't need to kind of micromanage this to such a degree that we, go through and make bronze faster. We just need to be getting the advanced Technium in fast enough. And for now, it does indeed appear like it's coming in fast enough. So next time, chat, we will come back and we will take a look, I think, at continuing on through the elite tier quest line. I thought we'd get around to this episode, but there's a lot of little quality of life things that I want to work on today. I wanted to work on getting the custom drawers. I wanted to work on getting the speed curio. I wanted to work on finally automating the PALIS crystals so that now we are getting advanced Technium in nice and fast. And I think that set us up nicely so that going forward, we can kind of enter the elite section of the quest book here with a good amount of advanced Technium, so that if we need to make, for example, more mechanism machines, which is something we're definitely going to have to do, we can do that fairly easily because we have the advanced Technium to make the advanced Technium machine frames that we're going to need for each and every mechanism machine going forward. And as we move forward here, you'll see there are even more machines that I'm sure are going to require even more of that advanced Technium. So having that all set up and all automated, I think is going to make our lives a whole heck of a lot easier going forward. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Techopolis 3 there.